This is a healthy tea. It might be a bit bitter, but please drink it while it's warm. My mother-in-law, who is usually critical of my career as a model, surprisingly spoke kindly, a stark contrast to her usual behavior towards me. I thought it was strange for her to be so nice all of a sudden. Could she have put something weird in it? With this suspicion, I swapped our teacups when she left her seat. A few hours later, as expected, she rushed to the bathroom with a pale face. Nicole, look this way for the camera. Yes, just like that, perfect. I lifted my gaze as he instructed. My name is Nicole, and I'm 28 years old. I'm in the middle of a photo shoot for a magazine, my job as a model. I started modeling 3 years ago when I was scouted and became an exclusive model for a women's magazine. I met my husband, Peter, who works as an editor for this magazine, through my modeling. We're both busy with our careers and don't have any children yet. But secretly, I hope to have children with Peter someday. Nicole, great job today. Your posing has really improved, hasn't it? After the photo shoot, Peter, who was at the location for work, approached and spoke to me. Thanks. All that practice at home paid off. I replied, accepting water he offered me. No more shoots today, right? I'm done for the day too. How about we go out for dinner? That sounds great. It's been a while since we've dined out together. I'm hungry, I said, and we headed to a restaurant near the station. We rarely get to date because of our schedules, so these moments are precious. I love these days, even if we can't relax as a couple. I feel so lucky to have someone like Peter who treasures me. A fulfilling job, a kind husband. I had no worries in such a blessed environment. But a sudden event was about to change our peaceful lives. Peter's father passed away unexpectedly. He collapsed at work and never returned. We didn't have much interaction with Peter's parents, who lived in another state. But his father always welcomed me warmly. His death was a shock to both Peter and me. Most significantly, it led to Peter's mother moving near our house. After selling her house, she moved into an apartment near ours. I feel lonely living alone for the first time since your father passed away. Peter is my only child, and I have no one else to rely on, she said tearfully at the funeral. She had no siblings, and Peter was her only child. Seeing her like this, Peter and I suggested she move into an apartment nearby. We could have lived together in our condo, but there was no spare room. She wanted to live with us, but when Peter mentioned the lack of space, she reluctantly chose the closest apartment. She seems to dote on Peter, her only son, and can't be firm with him. I had never been closely involved with Peter's parents as they lived in another state, but I thought things would be fine since she cares so much for Peter. I had no concerns about her moving close by. But soon, I was to learn about her unbelievable nature. 2 weeks after she moved nearby, I was already exhausted. She would come over and announce almost every day, "It's fine when Peter is home. We just have coffee." But the problem arises when it's just me. My mother-in-law seems to disapprove of my modeling career, always suggesting I should quit. Nicole, you, a model? You're not even that pretty? I bet you just use Peter's connections. Stop relying on my son's kindness and find another job. I started modeling because I was scouted. I don't rely on connections, I replied. At that, my mother-in-law frowned and got annoyed. Scouted, huh? Bragging, are you? It's pointless to try to one-up me. I was scouted by the entertainment industry when I was younger, but I wanted a quiet life, so I turned them all down. I'm not attention-seeking like you. She turned away, seemingly irritated. I just wanted to clear the misunderstanding, not to boast. My mother-in-law is indeed beautiful, and she must have been even more so when she was young. She always dresses fashionably and wears bold makeup. Anyway, someone as plain as you doesn't suit modeling. Quit right now. Now I'm really in trouble. She seems to see me as an enemy. I decided to talk to Peter about it. Your mother thinks I'm modeling because of your connections and keeps telling me to quit and find another job. Can you clear up the misunderstanding? I said this at dinner, and Peter sighed heavily. Mother, ha. I was hoping her being reasonable would last. But it seems it's come to this. His tone suggested he knew this would happen, which surprised me. What do you mean? Mother-in-law, well, Mother used to aspire to be a model, but she couldn't make it and gave up, marrying Dad. She's always been proud of her modeling ambitions. So I think she's jealous of you actually being a model? I tilted my head at Peter's words. But your mom said she turned down all the scouts. When I asked, puzzled, Peter responded with an air of exasperation. I've never heard such a story. She's probably lying because she's bitter. Plus, she's quite attached to me. I guess she dislikes the idea of my wife being a model even more. But why now? She was never harsh to me before. Because Dad was around before. He was a straightforward man who wouldn't tolerate any mistreatment or bad-mouthing. Now that he's gone, she's lost her restraint. I'm sorry, Nicole. I'll talk to her. Peter apologized, looking guilty, but I shook my head. You're not to blame. Don't apologize. You know I'm strong-willed, right? I won't be defeated by some insults in the competitive world of modeling. Don't worry. Nicole, thank you. If anything else happens, tell me right away. Peter called his mother right after dinner and seemed to have sternly reprimanded her. But I had no idea that this would only intensify her anger towards me. A week later, I was restless at home alone. I had a major modeling show tomorrow, a big opportunity, especially since I was handling famous brand clothes. As I was confirming the next day's movements, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. When I checked the monitor, my mother-in-law's apologetic face appeared. I was surprised. She hadn't visited in a week. What brings you here, Mother? I reflected on my actions after Peter scolded me. I'm sorry for everything. I brought some sweets. May we have tea together? She showed me the paper bag in her hand. You didn't have to go to such lengths. Please, come in, I said and invited my mother-in-law into the house. As soon as my mother-in-law entered the living room, she took the paper bag and headed to the kitchen. Nicole, you rest. You have an important show tomorrow, right? I was surprised to see you on a poster at the station. I brought some healthy tea, so I'll make it. Her smile seemed forced and awkward. A few minutes later, she returned to the living room with 2 teacups in her hands. Thank you. By the way, I have some delicious sweets here. I'll bring them. As I tried to go to the kitchen, she hastily stopped me. No. The kitchen is a mess right now. I brought the tea quickly because I wanted you to drink it while it's still warm. I'll clean up now, so wait here. She hurried back to the kitchen. Something felt odd. Was there something in the kitchen she didn't want me to see? Suspicious of her behavior, I swapped our cups. I tasted the tea and found nothing unusual. When she returned, she immediately looked at my cup. Seeing my tea partially drunk, I thought I saw a smirk on her face. Was there something in the tea? This tea is supposed to be very healthy. It might taste a bit bitter, but it feels good for the body. She sipped her tea with a smile. Thirsty from her rush, she drank more than half in one gulp. We chatted over tea, but nothing unusual happened. Maybe I was overthinking it. Feeling guilty for my suspicions, that's when it happened. Oh, I need to use the restroom. She rushed to the bathroom with a pale face. After 10 and 20 minutes, she still didn't come out. I called out several times, but from inside the bathroom, all I could hear was a pained voice saying, "I'm okay." After 30 minutes, worried for her safety, I called an ambulance. Mother, I've called an ambulance. They'll be here soon, so hang in there. I was worried, especially about Liddy. But what could have been in it? When the ambulance arrived, I accompanied her to the hospital. After contacting Peter, he said he'd come to the hospital right away. An hour later, in the hospital corridor, the doctor called me into the examination room. Her condition is stable and she's resting now. You can relax. Did she consume anything harmful before the symptoms appeared? I shook my head at the doctor's question. The last thing she had was the tea and snacks she prepared. I don't know more than that. Or maybe the snacks were spoiled. Since she's elderly, please be mindful of expiration dates. Once she wakes up, she can go home. After speaking with the doctor, I went to her room. Opening the door, I saw her sitting up. Mother, are you feeling better? As I approached, she glared at me. You murderer. What did you put in Mighty? I'll tell Peter about this. She suddenly yelled at me. I didn't do anything. It was you, wasn't it? As we argued, the door burst open. It was Peter. Peter, you're here. Listen, Nicole put something in Mighty. Upon seeing Peter, she started to cry. Then Peter quietly began to speak. Why do you think that he was the cause of Mother's collapse? You haven't even spoken to the doctor yet, right? His words made my mother-in-law look uncomfortable and evade eye contact. Well, what else could it be? Doctors said it might have been the snacks that were spoiled. Wouldn't that be the first assumption? The idea that something was mixed into the tea seems unrealistic. Peter calmly interrogated my mother-in-law, his demeanor tinged with anger. How could you? I thought you would be on your mother's side, Peter, my mother-in-law said tearfully, but Peter presented something to her. It was the paper bag she had brought as a gift. Why do you have that bag, Peter? Seeing the bag, my mother-in-law's face turned pale. I went back home after hearing Mother was stable. I left some important documents in my office bag and wanted to pick them up. That's when I found this bag and the 2 teacups. I looked inside the bag. Peter's words startled my mother-in-law. You looked inside the bag? Yes. You prepared this, right? Peter pulled out a plastic container with blue liquid from the bag. That liquid, what is it? Could it have been added to the tea? This is detergent, right? Why bring something like this just for tea? It's not true. It's all Nicole's fault. She planned everything. My mother-in-law denied it frantically. I'm not to blame. Nicole knew there was something in the tea and switched it. She's a murderer. Her desperate outcry seemed like a confession of her own actions. Peter muttered softly, I knew it, and glared coldly at her. Why did you do this? Nicole's life could have been in danger. What you did is a crime. Peter's anger made my mother-in-law shrink. But she's annoying. Using Peter's connections to model and being arrogant about it. Without any real talent, calling herself a model is laughable. She turned away defiantly. Nicole was scouted for modeling before we even met. Since then, she's earned her work on her own merit. And right now, I don't have the influence to make connections for her. When Peter spoke, my mother-in-law widened her eyes in surprise. Really? I thought Nicole was just boasting and lying. And I couldn't believe she could be on such a big stage tomorrow without any connections. Especially handling a famous brand. You knew about tomorrow's event. You mixed detergent to prevent Nicole from performing? Saying this, Peter frowned. Yes. Nicole doesn't deserve such a big stage. Even I, a beauty, couldn't become a model. So I wanted to ruin it. Hearing this, I shuddered. Such a selfish reason to mix detergent in my tea. Is she insane? Upon hearing my mother-in-law's words, Peter slowly began to speak. I'm sorry, but I have to disown you, Mother. Please don't involve yourself in our lives anymore. His voice was low and uncharacteristic of the usually calm Peter. His words surprised not only my mother-in-law but also me. disowning me. Wait, there's no need to go that far. Besides, Nicole wasn't actually harmed, my mother-in-law cried out desperately. However, Peter shook his head calmly. To do such a thing to my beloved wife. I can't trust you anymore. Who knows when you might do something like this again? And what if we had children? What would you do then? Such a thing. I won't do anything anymore. And if you disown me, I'll be all alone. Do you think that's okay? My mother-in-law clung to Peter, but he coldly shook off her hand. You're not a child. You can survive on your own. If you didn't want to be alone, you shouldn't have done this. It's your own fault. Peter said coldly, leaving my mother-in-law's face tear-streaked. Don't be like that. Please forgive me. Nicole, please convince Peter too. I'll get along with you from now on, okay? Hearing her words, I felt utterly disgusted. Why are you speaking to me as if you're above me? I can't easily forgive you for what happened. I'm sorry, but I'm scared of you. As I said this, my mother-in-law began to cry like a child. Why? Why are both of you being so cruel to me? To my mother-in-law, who was crying loudly, Peter said without mercy. We'll consult a lawyer about this incident. As I've said many times, what you did is a crime. Be prepared for the consequences. At Peter's words, my mother-in-law suddenly stopped crying. Consequences? Does that mean I could be arrested? That's right. You seem to be aware that you've committed a crime. What happens next is up to the victim, Nicole. But yes, that's the situation. We'll communicate through a lawyer from now on. With that, Peter turned to leave the room without another word. Wait. I did it for you, Peter. Don't be fooled by her. You deserve someone better, my mother-in-law screamed desperately, but Peter gave her one last piercing look. I decide my own happiness, not you. I can't deal with you anymore. With that, Peter left the room. I followed him quickly, leaving the room. As I glanced back, my mother-in-law looked dazed, her face tear-streaked and open-mouthed. Later, she was charged for tampering with a beverage. Peter wanted to report her to the police, but I preferred a settlement. Eventually, my mother-in-law agreed to pay a lump sum in compensation, resulting in significant debt. Even without being arrested, she wouldn't have the means to bother us with such debt. After thorough discussion, Peter and my mother-in-law legally disowned each other. She cried and refused, but the crime she committed was a significant reason, and she couldn't prevent the disownment. I heard about her later through the lawyer. She's working a live-in job to repay her debt, working from morning to night. The stylish and beautiful woman she once was is no longer there. Still, she says, I'm beautiful, so I'll become a model and make money, and applies to various magazines, though she's been rejected every time. Meanwhile, I successfully completed the big show, leading to more work. A year later, as we're considering having a child, I've been offered to model for a magazine for mothers. Now, I'm balancing my beloved career while trying for a baby, enjoying my fulfilling life,